I just don't understand why I had to send you a computer, why I had to put money into one of my old computers so that it was suitable for you to use in order to start doing podcasts again if we're not using that new computer and like we're still doing a podcast.
Well, I got your computer yesterday, and my
Right, but this whole time, this whole delay was couched in terms of you not having a computer, and that's why we couldn't do any more podcasts.
yes, my computer broke about 3 weeks ago, and I took it to get repaired, and they said you're gonna need to replace the logic board, and I said fuck you, fuck that. I don't have a computer. And then you sent me your
The logic board is did you say fuck you because they were calling themselves geniuses?
as a Genius Bar guy. I left. I was like, I'm leaving. You obviously can't help me with my problems. But the problem that I actually have is that
Wait, was he humbled? Was there a look of humble on his face? Like, you have to give us some details to make this story worthwhile.
This is not
Otherwise,
a worthwhile
it's just one
story.
of these things that has no. Oh, well, usually things that happen to me have a point, but okay, that's fine.
Usually things that happen to you have a point.
Yeah, that's my hot take of today. I think you're right. We do need to have a podcast to help the Bruins win.
Yes. We need to have a podcast to help the Bruins win. We haven't had a podcast because my computer's been broken.
So at this point, even if it shuts down, could we have a podcast that just says this much?
Just put it out.
Or are we still in the territory of being karmically fucked if we don't? You know what I'm saying?
I think no matter what happens, we should just put something out on the feed to kind of shake up the karma. Because we're down 3-2. I felt like that game 5 was a must-win game for both teams. I thought whoever won that game was going to be in the driver's seat. Obviously, I mean 3-2 is but really like after the game 4 game in St. Louis, I was like, "Oh, we can't beat these guys in St. Louis now. The crowd really wants it." And they can apparently beat us in Boston. So it's looking bad for us, but we're going to see if we can turn things around after this podcast. But we've gotten off to a horrible start. Should we start again?
The podcast?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going really well.
Okay, fine.
I think we've caught everyone up on what the delay has been, which has been your utter incompetence and not my fault in any way. So I really feel like this is off to a really good start. Do you disagree?
I don't care. Listen, you went to the Stanley Cup, continuing your improbable stretch of going to see championship Boston teams. You went to game 2.
Which was a bad game.
Bad game. You were in Boston. Mom and Dad, if you're listening to this, first of all, happy birthday, Mom. Second of all, Max, you went to the Stanley Cup. We need to talk about this. You didn't tell Mom and Dad that you were in Boston. This is going to get deep. This is going to cut. Do you have something you want to say to either Mom and Dad or our listeners about your behaviors, your lifelong behaviors?
It's not a lifelong behavior. Look, I was in Boston for 6 hours. I got to Boston 30 minutes before the game and was on the first flight out of Boston back down here in the morning. So no, I don't feel like I have to explain this on the podcast, Sam.
Okay, fine. If you are listening, Mom and Dad, and you want a further explanation, which
call
I
me.
Personally think is and you're right, you can call him, yeah. And if
just
that's
don't leave a
unsatisfying,
voice message. It's 2019.
So you did go to the game, and one of the things that you said to me was that the crowd was bad because it was basically not hockey fans. It was corporations who were flexing and
Well,
buying.
one of the problems, Sam, was that I was able to get tickets really easily and for not that much money.
How is that fucking possible?
Like the secondhand ticket market, like everyone's tickets were up for sale. Everyone who had been, all the like real sort of like blue collar hockey fans, of which I think the Bruins represent Boston's blue collar industries the best, right? They all can make their money back selling their tickets. And like, I was just surrounded by people who are not that interested in it. And like, I don't know if you saw the videos of Bostonians beating the shit out of each other at the Game 5 on Twitter. Did you?
Yeah, I did actually. Isaac sent it to me.
That was a wild video of that double fight. It was like a real lumberjack match. What did you think of the fighting techniques of the Bostonian who threw the beer on the other Bostonian? Because that dude was a fucking monster. He was enormous. And like the guy off camera throws a beer on this guy, right?
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, okay, now I have to like defend my honor because like before I was just going to like be the bigger dude and like have it like be able to just call you a piece of shit. Because that's what was happening. Big dude was calling some guy off camera a piece of shit. And be like, what? A beer hits him in the face, but we can only assume comes from the dude off camra.
My brother
and then the guy feels like
my brother's analyzing a Twitter video of a brawl that broke out in the Boston Garden after the Bruins
Sam,
lost.
you have martial arts expertise. This is actually interesting. A lot of people who consume YouTube and Twitter videos of Bostonians beating the shit out of each other have no fighting experience and can't tell us what they think of the fucking guard position. The guy who threw the beer on that monster.
They do go straight. The one guy clearly has taken some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes and is just like
he takes some
and he's just
Brazilian
like drunk and he's like, I'm gonna see if this thing works. But one of the things they tell you in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is never try and use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a fight because someone will just come up from behind you and kick you. And that's almost what happens. But instead what happens is like these two guys are fighting. And then I think it looked to me as if two people nearby were watching them were just like, yeah, fuck it. That looks fun. And just started fighting without any warning or any kind of build up. They were just like, yeah, let's do that.
I think what happened was they pulled a Boston. They suddenly remembered where they came from and decided that the only with that memory squarely between their ears, decided to headbutt one another. I just think that like the long and short of it is that like I'm not convinced of our home ice advantage, especially after our last performance. Especially because those referees, Sam, in the old days, in dirty old Boston,
the referees
home field advantage wouldn't feel safe.
Yes,
wouldn't feel safe, like blatantly doing that to the home team. Like, how did those referees get out of the Fleet Center that night?
I know, that's exactly right. The home field advantage should skew the refs in your favor because they should be worried about the crowd, but they clearly weren't.
In the old days, Harry Sinden would have stabbed one of the referees himself with a hockey skate. That's the general manager, or it was.
Yeah, so that was fucked up. The referees, the non-call on the deciding goal of the game. That's totally sucks.
On our home ice.
I know.
I don't know, Sam. After Game 3, when we scored 5 power play goals, fucking their coach, the St. Louis Blues' coach,
he started complaining.
St. Louis, which is St. Louis, which is a racist city. Like, this motherfucker didn't complain at all when Mike Brown was killed or when the fucking Ferguson was under siege by militarized cops, but he is complaining about referees giving the Bruins legitimate penalty calls. I think that's worth noting. I do. I was pissed. I'm
It seems
furious
like
that this is
he got to the refs
because we haven't gotten shit in the subsequent 2 games. We've lost both of them, and another one of their players has gotten fucking suspended for an illegal hit. They're like taking our players out left and right. It sucks. If we had won that game, all we'd be talking about is how brave and magnificent Chara is.
Yeah.
Even though he gave up he was on the ice for the goals.
Yeah, but the thing is that the non-call at the end of the game, like the guy who trips our player is already looking at the ref complaining, trying to like complain that the player took a dive or flopped, but it's like he left the game with a concussion. He didn't fucking flop. He smashed his head into the ice after he was tripped from behind. And clearly the guy in the Blues knew that he had tripped him because he immediately starts appealing to the ref. And the ref was there the whole time watching it. That was fucking crazy. I hope now that they'll try and correct that horrible injustice in Game 6 in St. Louis.
Right, and we have to fucking be able. I hope we're healthy enough. I hope karmically we're entitled to some calls in St. Louis. All neutral parties want a Game 7, right?
Right.
If all neutral parties want a Game 7, if it's in the NHL's interest for this to be a 7-game series, which it is, they will correct this. But you know what, Sam? I thought the same thing after the Bruins got fucking robbed in 2013, which I was so mad about. If you remember, I refused to vote in the Scott Brown election.
Do you think that was the right move?
No.
So you're sorry?
No. Yeah, I think that's a dumb thing to get really upset about losing in this sporting event and then not participate in the civic enterprise the next day. But for all those who remember that, like, Scott Brown won in a special election against this like Democrat woman cop, Coakley or some shit, and it was so bad. She was just like, I'm a cop. And it's not like we haven't seen this before. Familiar story played out. A carceral white feminist who everyone in the Democratic establishment said it was her turn, was chosen to run against a bombastic charlatan named Scott Brown,
who had posed naked in Playboy, right?
Yeah. Which some other bombastic clown seemed to think is probably cool. Yeah. Anyway, brother.
Yeah.
The Bruins were able... I just want you to know that the Bruins were 2-2 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who were the other really, really good team we faced in the playoffs. And I think they're just as good as the Blues. We faced that... We won Game 6 in Toronto and then came back to Boston for Game 7.
In the opening series?
In the opening series.
Uh-huh.
So you got that going for us.
We won a Game 6 in Toronto?
Yeah.
So we were down 3-2 to Toronto in round 1?
Yes.
Oh.
Welcome to the end of my thought process.
Wow.
So does that fill you with a little confidence?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I think there needs to be a karmic correction for the egregious no call at the end of the game, at the end of Game 5. I think we played it we played a lot better. We had more shots on goals, a lot more shots on goal than the Blues did. I think that we showed that we
should have scored in the first period and we didn't. Yeah.
Obviously, we can play with these guys. It's a really good matchup. It's a good game. So I'm a little worried. I don't think that there's by any means that this is ours, that we have this. Of course, we're down now. But I think that there's no reason to believe that
we're on the verge of elimination. The trifecta might be off the table.
I know.
We were so mad about losing the Boston Slam that you decided that we couldn't do a podcast anymore. Have we not talked about that?
I don't think we have. I think the last time we put out a podcast was like
the day before the Celtics lost?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I hereby resign. This is over. We can't, this is, we betrayed all of our listeners.
How so?
They got emotionally invested in the Boston Slam too, I would think. The revolution and everything. And now we just gave up. We're like, okay, everybody. We still have a chance. We still have a chance of everything being really awesome and good. Trust us. Don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine. We still got this. It's still on the table. And then we lose, and then we just abandon everybody. I resign.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what were we supposed to do?
Tell everyone we're sorry and like that. Like, okay, here's the thing, everybody. The revolution was never going to come just because everyone was so mad at Boston sports. It was going to have to be a combination of everyone being mad at Boston sports' success and organizing. But we didn't get to tell them that. We didn't get to give the message a message of like,
we don't want to organize. We just want to watch the sports and let it come to us after we win all the time. We just want to win.
If a New England senator wins the election, that's the Boston Slam.
What are you talking about? If Elizabeth
the New
Warren
England Patriots,
wins
the Boston Red Sox, the Boston Bruins, and the presidency. All from New England? New England state?
New England. Okay, good. So, because we're not...
A New England state.
Warren on this
A New England
podcast.
State.
Yeah, I got you.
New England state.
Yeah, okay. So, Boston Slam. It's still alive, ladies and gentlemen. Fuck basketball. Fuck the Celtics. Fuck Kyrie. Because of Bernie and the Bruins. Bruins and the Bernie.
I mean, look, we should probably talk about Elizabeth or Bernie at some point on that podcast because I think it's fun. That's a conversation people would be interested in, especially if we just argued about this from a Bostonian perspective. Because I think, like, restoring Greater Massachusetts to her original boundaries and the implications that has for Vermont is also interesting. So we'll talk about it at some point.
That sounds fun, yeah.
But I would like to do a post-mortem on the Boston Slam in general. Wait, Sam, are you sure we didn't debrief the Boston Slam?
Yes.
So when we talked about it in terms of Moby Dick, that was before the Celtics loss?
Yes.
Yeah, we suck. I resign. Never mind. I don't want to do this anymore. If you remember our previous episode, everyone, which was months ago, and about there's a long tangent about the white whale, I do think that's an interesting way of talking about this because there are people out there, I read them, for whom, even if the Bruins make a remarkable comeback in the series and win the last two games, they'll still be disappointed because we didn't win. The Celtics didn't win. We didn't get the trifecta. In the last 20 years.
Are you talking about me?
In the last 20 years, one could say that having won every major championship and multiple championships at that, the shine off of an individual championship is kind of been taken off, so much so that having tasted the mere possibility of a Boston Slam, it all doesn't work. What I would suggest is this is sort of like the Patriots, our deranged Picasso-esque perspective warping that has taken place from the Patriots' success has made me only want to win if we can win undefeated.
Oh, so that's a great point. So you're not talking about the success that the Patriots have built up over the years. You're talking about that one season and how that. Because I've heard you say this before.
Losing the perfect season, That's
Like,
all I. That's all
even
I
though
want.
we've won 3 times since then, you still have not recovered from
We've won three
like that.
times since then, which is more than almost every single team has won in the last 30 years. I don't think any team in the last 30 years has won 3 Super Bowls besides the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean,
Is that right? Maybe the Giants? No, I think that's right.
49ers, how many years?
30.
Then that's definitely right. Steelers, 2?
2. But I'm so fucked up that I don't care that we've won more than anyone else. And on top of the fact that we have the best quarterback of all time, the winningest, whatever, I'm so green and sick in my throne as I just like have no enemies left to threaten me, and I just like dying of what is it? What's the thing that Genghis Khan has when you get real bloated and gluttonous?
I don't know.
Will you edit this out?
I'll consider it. It's going to be a hard edit, brother, because you literally trailed off in the middle of a sentence.
I mean, as I was saying, I'm like this like green king, like even though I have like conquered all around me and everyone is like jealous of where I am. All football fans like just like bow down to us in envy, brother. I'm still fucked up because I want to go undefeated.
So are you saying that this, like, because the Celtics lost and the Boston Slam was spoiled, that it doesn't matter what happens in the Stanley Cup outcome for you?
No, I'm here to tell you that is an insane thing. That like I am sick and don't do as I do. I'm trying to convince you to like not go down this path, the dark side, because I have somehow managed to talk. I mean, like don't get me wrong, everybody. I'm truly happy every time the Patriots win the Super Bowl, and I think that like reflects well on where the city where I come from and fills me with civic pride. And so don't get me wrong, but I just think like having spent so much emotional energy investing in a perfect season and being the greatest team of all time, that like every time we lose a game, even if we end up winning the Super Bowl, I get a little sad. And even it's like, don't be sad if the Bruins make an amazing comeback. Don't be sad. It's fucked up to be sad. Just that we didn't get the slam.
But you will be sad, even though you acknowledge that it's fucked up?
No. If the Bruins fucking make this incredible comeback, I'll be so happy. And then I'll get to work organizing to defeat Donald Trump with a fucking someone who isn't Joe fucking Biden or anyone like who isn't from New England. I only trust people from New England. And also not Seth Moulton.
Who?
He's a congressman from our neck of the woods, and he's running for president.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, for no reason. I think he wants to become... Maybe if he gets on the debate stage, he'll be able to replace Elizabeth Warren when she's gets a new job in the fall. Do you want to talk about the Women's World Cup?
What do you have to say?
I have to say that as dudes, we should all buy Women's World Cup jerseys.
Who sell me on one? Which player should I get?
Alex Morgan.
Who is she?
She's a fucking really, really, really good. She's like the best player on our team.
Where are we in the Women's World Cup right now?
It just started today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. On our mom's birthday.
That's cool. What about heavyweight championship fight, the boxing.
Don't care. Are you happy that guy, like, I just think that, like, the story of the man winning the heavyweight championship is so shitty the way people are talking about it.
Why?
Cause it's not it like the reason it's unexpected and great is because the man who doesn't look like conventionally like he's a good fighter, he looks kind of fat or whatever.
Yeah,
One.
for sure.
But the way everyone's talking about it reifies those same structures of like fat phobic body supremacy, which is like part and parcel of the patriarchy, right? Like,
I guess
everyone remarking on this, why this story of the fat boxer winning is like, are doing so in a way that, like, if you are fat and like comfortable in your own skin, the coverage will make you less so. It like works to like make people. That's my take.
Well, isn't this guy a inspiring example for someone who's a little overweight but
Yeah, well then let overweight, like, whatever. I don't even like I think that's like a dumb way of looking at it. Like people would say like this guy was overweight and he like undermines the very concept of being overweight, right? But instead of letting people who also are tolerant of all bodies cover this story, they're letting the people who think overweight is a real thing or whatever, that like this motherfucker is clearly healthy, right? He's the heavyweight champion of the world.
I mean, he also like literally eats Snickers during the boxing match. Like, I don't know if he's healthy or not. He doesn't.
Yo, what the fuck does healthy mean if this dude who is the fucking champion isn't it? Fuck you. Fuck that. What are you talking about? If you're the heavyweight champion of the world, you are
who eats fucking Reese's for breakfast, Max. I know you're desperately looking for someone who can justify
fuck
your
that. Sam, respond to this. What does healthy mean if this dude isn't it?
I don't know what healthy means.
Yeah, right. It's a fucking bourgeoisie construct.
Yeah, I assume that that's like healthy is a
bourgeois construct.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I think they can probably create a lot of markets around that, sell you a lot of products for that.
Absolutely. And you can also be mad ableist and fucking exclusionary towards heavy people in order to like fucking subjugate them, just like the way we subjugate black people, women, and gender non-conforming folks. Anyway, that's my take on the boxing. I want to go back to you buying a U.S. women's jersey and how that would be a cool thing, especially if you are a dad or considering being one. It's a good first step to take. You know, like start your collection now of awesome women athletes to get your children thinking the right way.
Is Hope Solo still the goalkeeper?
No, we got a new goalie this year.
Because that would be a cool jersey.
All right. Let's move on. The Red Sox are mediocre, if not bad. But I'm actually not too worried about it. Like, we're going to make the wild card. Yeah. We'll probably have to play, we'll probably win that game. Then we'll have to take on the Twins in the opening round, which doesn't, does that scare you, Samson?
No, I mean, we beat the Yankees and the Astros. So worst case scenarios, we have to face the Yankees and the Astros like we did last year.
Well, that scares me.
Yeah.
This is what would be so nice, right? Like, we play the Twins, and if anyone hasn't been following Boston sports for the last 20 years, every time Boston and Minnesota go at it in any way, Boston comes out way, 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 way ahead. Right, Sam? David Ortiz, Randy Moss, Kevin Garnett,
Well,
whatever.
you're just talking about players that have gone from Minnesota to Boston.
Do you know how many championships have been won in Minnesota?
Do we count the Lakers?
I count the Lakers, but that's because I don't want LA to have them because that would be stolen valor. Anyway, no. We beat the Twins in the first round. Then, with any luck, the Astros or the Yankees take the other one out. Hopefully, it's the Astros because I wouldn't want to lose to the Yankees.
Yeah.
That would fuck me up.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fucked up? Because that would be right around the election time. It would be the Red Sox and the Yankees right before the election.
Wait,
if we meet in the ALCS.
That's not true. The election's in 2020, not 2019.
Oh, good. Phew. Because I would not want to, put that in my own karmic hands, having to fucking choose between 4 more years of Trump or losing to the Yankees. I wouldn't trust myself with that decision.
Really?
I mean, I fucked it up before.
We fucking won last year. That would even be a thing that you would think about?
I just saying, Sam, that let me give you an example. The only time I support felons losing their right to vote is when they commit massive voter fraud, the way white people do when they disenfranchise black people on a massive scale. Those crooks should lose their right to vote, but everyone else shouldn't. The only time I think someone should lose their right to karmically chime in on whether they would rather have 4 more years of Trump or the Yankees defeating the Red Sox in the playoffs is when someone has made a terrible, terrible, terrible choice when faced with a similar option in the past.
Yeah, brother, I'm afraid that just whatever it was that was swirling around that head of yours, you've failed to make it understandable.
In
for
2004,
me or anyone else.
Everybody, for anyone who hasn't listened to our early episodes, in 2004, I said out loud that I would rather have John Kerry lose to George W. Bush than have the Red Sox lose to the Yankees again in the ALCS. I said that. And meant it.
Yeah. It was a different world then.
I was wrong.
Not forgivable, but
I was
understandable.
Wrong. No. I appreciate your empathy.
What about, should we talk about the incels of Barstool Sports?
We should talk about Barstool Sports. We should also talk about the incels who are trying to do a straight pride march in Boston.
Oh my God, we have to talk about that. They're probably the same dudes.
I think that's a really good point, Sam. Go on.
I mean, I just think that we should treat these as the same issues. It's the same issue.
Well, I have an interesting take. I've been thinking a lot about this Barstool Sports thing. Do you want to catch people who have no idea what we're talking about up on it?
I'll start, and then you chime in, and then give us your take. Basically, Barstool Sports is a sports and now other culture kind of blog website that's based out of Boston, or at least it was founded by Boston dudes, and it is misogynistic. It's for millennials. It's for men. It's for white people. The demographic is conservative. It's conservative. They're kind of nefarious and evil dudes, but they're basically the anti Phone Wallet Keys David Ortiz. They're not brothers,
but they are bros.
But they're bros. What else? I mean, it's not a Boston sports thing anymore. It's just kind of a regular sports blog.
They have weirdly they have like their model seems to be like get content produced about like local sports, right? It's like every state has their own Barstool dudes who run the local one, and they produce content about what's going on locally. Like Kansas City Barstool has Kansas City sports, but they like just like churn out content, and they have been accused of being there's like enough mainstream articles about their misogyny to make it like a thing that you don't have to like say. Some people say like they're misogynistic, right? And also what they do is they have like legions and legions of like bros online who get like real fucking scary really, really fucking quick whenever a Barstool personality comes under attack.
Right.
Hence the incels shit.
Right, which is relevant because during this hockey series, the Stanley Cup, basically like the Barstool has some sort of connection with the Boston Bruins, or they're given certain access.
They were invited to sponsor something, a towel.
Right, and a woman writer from the Boston Herald. Do you remember her name?
Ngemi?
Yeah, Ngemi. That's exactly right. The Ngemi, who's a woman sports writer for the Boston Herald, which my brother and I do not like. We're not fans of no fans of the Boston Herald, but
don't fucking jump on my point here. Just keep telling the thing, and then like turn it over for me for the blistering hot take that you'll respond to because I have one.
She was critical of the Boston Bruins partnering with Barstool Sports because of their rank misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote an article about it, which was then like people just she was basically like almost like doxxed online, or she was just like attacked by hundreds and hundreds of incels, just like
Barstool
calling her fat.
Fans.
Yeah, calling her fat and ugly, and like saying like, was this woman talking about sports? It's just like horrible misogynistic internet like rancor.
So here's my really hot take, right? Like I don't think the Bruins should partner with anyone who publishes misogynistic shit or like has racist worldviews and has like really like publishes hateful positions over and over and over again. So that means they shouldn't fucking partner with the Herald either, right?
Right. True.
I mean, like, look, here's the tension, right? As I see it. I don't think they should partner with Amazon because Amazon has fucking horrific worker policies and don't give their women paid time off to have babies. There's no maternity leave. That's like a misogynistic business practice. How the fuck should the like Amazon? Are you kidding me? Like
that's interesting.
So here's the deal. As far as I know, there's not an active picket line. There's no active call to say boycott Barstool. And if there was, I think I would respect it, and I wouldn't partner or buy or consume Barstool. Not that I do anyway, because I don't. But like, and I think like if it was like, don't allow the Herald to come to your games until they stop allowing anti-immigrant screeds to like grace the fucking pages of their op-eds. You know what I mean? Like, fuck that. The Herald sucks.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think
there's
something
if
about
you want to boycott something that like there isn't a campaign around, that's between you and God, right? Like, boycotts are an organizing tool, right? They are a tactic, not a principle. In principle, the Bruins shouldn't work with anyone who's fucked up. But like the Bruins are owned by a principleless billionaire, right?
Right.
He shouldn't exist either. So it's not, boycotts aren't principles, they're tactics, they're ways of raising awareness and pressuring. So, like, call for an active boycott of Barstool until they like get their legions of people under control and stop producing misogynistic content, right? And
Yeah, but
start,
that's like saying like
their female
let's
employees
boycott
better.
let's boycott Breitbart until they like get their. It's like no, but you at a certain point you have
That
to draw the
shit's-
line and just say
that shit is rotten to its core.
yeah, and
Don't fuck with them.
Barstool is like
Or-
that. So we have to, instead of just like boycotting Barstool until they get slightly better like reputation for their handling of sensitive content, like the answer is definitely instead to put pressure on, I mean, an organization that would pair up with them and do promotional material with them.
I agree. And I think like that's why you're not seeking to get fucking Breitbart to change. When you say boycott Breitbart, you're seeking to isolate Breitbart and like get that position, that shitty worldview marginalized, push it to the margins.
Right.
Push Barstool to the margins
Right.
by not fucking with them.
And by
not
supporting
letting them
and by supporting
alternatives, women journalists.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like call for a boycott and get your fucking writers union to do so.
Smart.
But like don't there's too many like it's too target rich for like of if like misogyny and racism are the, and that's not, I'm not saying if, they should be, right? They should be fucking no-go zones. If you are misogynistic or racist, you're like persona non grata, right?
Right.
Since
Not
that's
only
the
will we
bar
not
we
read
want to
your
set, use the boycott as a tactic, right? Call for a boycott. We'll then move on to the Herald. And we'll have specific articles that are unforgivable, that should never have been published.
It is. You're right to point out the irony that this is coming from the Herald, from writers who are employed by the Herald, which is a garbage publication,
which publishes hate speech against immigrants on the reg.
Yeah,
which has published hate speech against Boston's black people on the reg for generations.
Yeah. Which is not to excuse Barstool at all. I mean, that's just like a small bit of irony, but basically Barstool is a more extreme version of the Boston Herald and a more popular one.
Well, also it's a younger version, right? It's much more in tune with today's internet. Like fucking the Herald wants some of that beef with Barstool, even though their fucking worldviews are actually similar, because they're the old guard and Barstool's the new guard.
Right,
no one fucking is reading the Herald anymore.
That's right.
Only old angry white people are. Young angry white people are reading Barstool, and that fucking scares the Herald. So they want to wag their finger at the Bruins. But like, if the fucking standards are the standards, then like it's incoherent unless the boycott is being deployed as a tactic rather than a principle.
Right. And so the young angry white people of Barstool popularity are now also calling for a straight pride march in Boston, in Titletown, USA, our hometown. And
there's been so many funny things about this, but not many people, with the exception of friend of the podcast, Zoe Samudzi, pointed out that one of the guys who took out a permit for this fucking Boston straight pride thing is an actual literal fucking Proud Boy fascist.
Is that true?
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Isn't that wild? I think so. Like, I think sure we should all make fun of this because it's ridiculous and obnoxious. And there's what is it's like all lives matter. You know, it's like that ridiculous, right? But it is. Mm-hmm. It does seem like to be like what young white nationalist fascist groups are doing to like attract people who feel sexually marginalized, like the incels. Did you know? I think that's the only thing worth talking about at this point about the Boston, other than like how you and your stick wielding martial arts friends should go kick the shit out of them.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that's interesting is like what this clearly is not a great example of the power of a boycott. I mean, you can't just like right. So what instead this is what we this calls for a different sort of direct action besides
Yeah,
boycott,
we should
a
fuck
different sort of
them up.
nonviolent action. No. There's other nonviolent actions that you can do here.
Yeah, but also we could consider violently disrupting this hate gathering and disperse them ourselves. I mean, I don't think you can like depend on cops to disperse violent hate gatherings, right? Because so many of those cops are members of said groups. So, as usual in our city, the hero work falls to you and me.
Yeah,
The Geller boys could
there was
certainly fuck up a straight pride rally. Don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I think there was this moment when the Westboro Baptist Church protested my high school graduation. And what's interesting is this is around the same time that Westboro Baptist Church also, within a year or so, they had gone to the college that you were at. And the two different tactics were interesting. I was like young. I was like 17 or something, and you were a little bit older, 21, 22. Well, first I'll say what I did, and then I'll say what you did. So the Westboro Baptist Church protested the Brookline High graduation, and we basically like there was like 15 of them or whatever, not a lot.
Why
and
did they protest your graduation? Do you remember?
I think that they called Dr. Bob, who was the headmaster, they called him a
because Brookline
I think
High had
they
a
accused him of
GSA.
being gay. Oh yeah, Gay Straight Alliance. Yeah, they accused like the headmaster of being gay. Yeah, I don't know, like it's not really relevant why. I mean those, but so we formed this like group. We formed a ring around them. We basically counter protested with 3 times as many people as they had or more, and like beat on drums and basically had like a rally where we just showed up in force like around and circled them, and it was like this kind of feel good
Yeah, you
moment,
sound like really good allies.
even though it was cheap. Yeah, it was cheap and easy, but I think I mean whatever. It's not like we were doing bad in the world. Then around the same time they went to your college, and you dressed up like a Klansman and made a sign that said, "I agree with everything they're saying," and you just joined their march wearing robes, Klansman robes. Which, I mean, okay, that was like probably 2005, 2006, a different cultural climate. I'm not sure that you would do that now.
Definitely not.
Definitely not, right? But I do think obviously it was extreme and problematic, but the point that you're making was obvious and powerful nonetheless. And they didn't kick you out or anything. They just kind of let you be there, right?
They didn't know they didn't know what to do.
Were you alone?
Yeah.
You don't really want to talk about this.
It's a little embarrassing. Also, there wasn't the Westboro Baptist Church. It was just like one guy who was like Westboro adjacent, who was just like and his friends who like had all these signs that were, I would say, adjacent to the Westboro Baptist Church, but they weren't like, they were just sort of like, it was one preacher who was condemning everyone to hell for their lifestyle choices in a really shitty way. And like, I didn't really do enough to consider what it would be like to see someone using what it would be like for maybe like a black person to see someone using the Ku Klux Klan in a theatrical way to like discredit an asshole. Like it's you should think more about these things. Anyway,
you were
the first
you were
few
young,
days I was I argue with him and like like showed everyone that there were people here that disagreed, and that didn't really work. It didn't stop them from coming. But you show up for like fucking 25 minutes with a sign that says, I agree with everything this man says, and they leave. So there is that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that would have had the same effect without the Klansman costume. Yeah. So maybe there's a way to do that kind of thing, but without the like extremely profoundly triggering and insensitive.
Yeah, just dress up like a
therefore
Nazi.
Insensitive costume.
Because I can deal much better with the fucking the old Jews triggered by seeing me like in like full Hitler regalia, like agreeing with what those people were saying. Like those are people I can deal with. Like I could deal with Aunt Laura
So maybe
being
that's
severely triggered by me in a Hitler costume, whereas like I don't like the problem of like anti-black white supremacy is much more clear and present and immediate.
But
than the threat
of course,
Hitler.
then the fear becomes if we show up for the Boston Straight Pride Parade dressed in full Nazi regalia, the fear is that we'll immediately be exalted and like named the rulers of the of the march, and then we can just march them straight into the fucking Charles.
Like yeah, it'll be the end of Satanic Verses when we lead our followers to a mass drowning.
Weren't you gonna like create an organization that was called like this? What was it called? It was an anti-women's suffrage organization that you were gonna take billboards out all across the South called, what was it called? The 1920 Project or something?
Yeah, I had this idea to infiltrate the pro-life movement
with an offshoot anti-women's suffrage movement.
I just wanted
that you would just get all of them to kind of
right. If we're gonna use the Bible as our reference, let's like they shouldn't be allowed to own property or vote either. It was the idea that I thought they could. Again, not the kind of thing that I'm trying to like. Whatever. You want to keep talking about my failures?
It definitely,
that's what like this podcast should be about.
I mean, your failures are fascinating, and I'm sure they would endlessly entertain both myself and the dozen listeners, if you're still there. More than sports. No one.
I doubt anyone's still there because I resigned 25 minutes ago.
Well, listen. I think that the line of perfection has to show up in a big way in Game 6. I think we need Patrice Bergeron to come alive like he did in Game 3. It's basically our only hope for the Stanley Cup, and that's fine. Like the thing about that Celtics, which is like that last podcast that we did, which those words seem insane now in retrospect, but I was basically just like, I will live and die with Kyrie because we died
with Kyrie
horrifically because Kyrie fucking sucks. But I mean, with the Bruins, like I feel like we have no choice but to say I'm gonna live and die with Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, Pasternak, Chara, Rask. Like these are the guys. Like, and for whatever reason, they're not the ones who have showed up in a huge way. They've had their moments, they've had their games, but they're not dominating the series. But if they come in and have two, just all we need is back-to-back strong games from Bergeron, Pasta, and we'll take home the Stanley Cup. I really think that we can.
I do too, brother. I love you so much.
One thing
You're such an optimist.
Game 4. Listen, in Game 4, I was horrified by Game 4. I mean, that was such a fun hockey game to watch, but I was horrified because one of the things that was so clear is that we could not generate any offense. The most that we could do was just clear the puck out of our defense. And anytime we were kind of had the puck and were trying to make something happen, you could tell that our defenders were already skating backwards. They were already preparing for when the play was going to turn around. And in Game 4, that switched. I saw our defense play more aggressive. I love seeing Chara come up in Game 5, excuse me. I love seeing Chara come up in front of the blue line and all of our defensive players. Like, I think that's the key to victory. We did that in Game 5. It still wasn't enough, but I think we need to see more of that in Game 6, Game 7. Aggressive defense, a strong performance from Bergeron
Hopefully
and Pasta.
our fucking actual star defenseman Mike Gridsley can come back from the vicious hit he took from, like, look, St. Louis has been fucking administering cheap shots all series long, and they come from a racist city. I don't understand why this isn't a bigger narrative.
I love that, brother. I think those are good words to end on.
Well, good, because
I love you very much. That's great. I bet you I could get one more performance out of you. Yeah. But I'll save it for Game 7. Listen, thank you all for coming back to us. Phone Wallet Keys, David Ortiz. We've been active on Twitter and Instagram while we've been away from the podcast. So if
sort of. Do you feel like that's true? We've looked at Twitter.
And anyway, we got to keep this podcast going a little bit longer, at least until the hockey season is over, and then I think we'll maybe we should have a call-in episode to see what we do about the future of this podcast or something. But so if you're still listening and you care, like, start thinking about what you want from us. If you want us to stop, and what your argument is going to be for that. If you want us to keep going, or you want us to change gears.
I don't think people have any opinion one way or the other. That's where you're like, no one wants us to stop. They just don't care. Nobody cares.
Anyway, thank you all for listening. You can Venmo me some money for a new computer too, if you really want to.
If anyone tries to provide for my brother in a way that's greater than the way that I do, I will intervene in a way that makes you incredibly uncomfortable. This is setting up a clear boundary.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye, Max. Love you.